Hey, what's up, y'all? And of course, welcome to another alternative factuals video and all that good stuff and all that jazz. And today I'm going to be talking about something that's a little interesting. It's not really episodic based, but it is about, Black Lightning, this series. So obviously you can get that from the title when this video decides to release and all that good stuff. But I wanted to discuss something that I was very conflicted about when it came to the show. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the show a lot. But what made this a little, well, some parts of the show was very conflicting for me, and I guess I'm going to go over one part of the show that was a little conflicting that I didn't really enjoy per se, and I felt like was a little contradictory, as you would say. But before I get into any details, please be sure to, of course, like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about Black Lightning as a whole, or Black Lightning in terms of this particular topic, and all that good stuff and all that jazz. And without further ado, let's kind of dive into it. So as much as I enjoyed Black Lightning season 1 and 2, obviously this is kind of like one of the go-to channels for Black Lightning, at least from what I've heard or whatever like that. They severely depowered Black Lightning, and in a lot of ways I did not completely agree with it, because just in the whole spectrum of DC Universe and the whole comic book situation, he was one of the most powerful heroes to ever walk the face of the earth. And that was actually said by Batman, Superman. Multiple heroes have admitted that Black Lightning is absolutely no joke. He is considered a powerhouse. And this is what I want to get into. Now, initially I thought they depowered him because his abilities were just too much. In retrospect, if you look in the comics, his powers were off the charts, off the meters, and he was a very self-sufficient character. And in a lot of ways, a lot of the Justice League and Batman specifically, when he created the Outsiders team, he depended on him heavily. He was experienced as well as he was powerful. So he had the means to always achieve the job. But when they started to introduce Jennifer's powers in season 2, we really got to see what she was capable of. She was more powerful than Jefferson Pierce when he was at his peak. So I mentioned this before in an older video, where 50% of Jefferson's power at his 50% of Jennifer's power was what Black Lightning was at his peak. And I'm thinking in my head in the show, like, why would they make the daughter, someone who had absolutely no real use for her powers and had very limited showings in the comic book, so powerful, but then they didn't make him that powerful? And it was conflicting, especially because it wasn't even like, hey, he was, weaker due to age, which I could actually completely accept because they made it a little bit more grounded. But it's just, they just decided to depower him in general. Now, let me get into detail when I say just depower him in general. Black Lightning did not have to siphon energy in order to sustain his powers in the comic books at all. He had abilities that were self-sustaining, meaning he was able to generate his own bioelectricity and expel it in various different forms. And as he started to kind of get familiar a little bit more with his powers, he was very creative on how he wanted to use those abilities. So it was a little conflicting that they decided to do that. But like I said, especially when they introduced a daughter who had every bit of power that he was supposed to have in a sense, but then depowered him even when he was in his prime. And for those of you who don't realize how powerful Black Lightning is and how severely the CW show depowered him, if you've ever read the Outsiders comics from 2009, I believe it was issue 27, that they had this issue with Brion. And Brion is called Geo Force in the comic books. And if you're watching the Teen Titans animated series that's on the DC Universe app, you'll know who Brion is. And if you don't, just take the time to Google him, or you can just Google Outsiders 2009 issue 27 Black Lightning versus Geo Force. But Black Lightning literally was like fighting someone who could manipulate gravity and the earth and won. Like, he beat the dude. But here's the kicker. Like I said, he had abilities to move, at super speeds. He had the abilities to expel lightning. He had the abilities to absorb energy. He had the ability to summon Black Lightning. And even though, it's his name or whatever, but there was a reason why he was called Black Lightning. And one major ability that they didn't seem to kind of explore and kind of, like I said, gave all the power to Jennifer, was that Black Lightning had the ability to grow his abilities with his anger. Now, his Black Lightning was actually a manifestation of his emotions, where he even beat Brion. It was in issue number 28 of the Outsiders from the same run, obviously, that I was talking about just a couple seconds ago, where like they were literally fighting and things got intense, and then at one point you thought that Brion had defeated Black Lightning, and then in retrospect Black Lightning managed to just burst out of nowhere. Then his power was still continuously rising, and then he summoned Black Lightning, and then he defeated him. But the point being is that why would they introduce a character who, you know, in comic books was, you know, powerful, a powerhouse, and then depower him, and then the reason that they depowered him wouldn't apply to his daughter, who had all the power that he should have had? And that's what I didn't agree about the show as a whole. Now, I would get it in terms of if they depowered everyone consistently in terms to tell a better story, because then you run into that Superman complex problem, or I forget what exactly they call it, but they call it the Superman problem, where basically if you're too powerful, you can solve every problem. And I think what they, I guess, assumed would happen is that if Black Lightning was too powerful, that he'll be able to beat Tobias a little too quickly. And I don't think that's the case, especially because if you've read any of the Black Lightning comics, Year One, Cold Dead Hands, if you've read any of that, he was still extremely powerful. But what made this very interesting in general is that it wasn't just strictly about power, it was the way that he used those powers. It was the way that he had to implement those abilities, so that way he not only didn't have to hurt others, but also so that way he could not turn into a supervillain. Because for those of you who don't know, Superman is extremely powerful, but he had psychic barriers put into place simply because he can hold his power back. But you can tell the same kind of stories with the same kind of, you know, crutch, in a sense, where Black Lightning is so powerful and he's a black man in the DC universe in America and all that stuff, and the reason why he does not give his 110% when fighting other villains or people like Tobias is because the whole point of having power is so that way it doesn't corrupt him absolutely. Because it's the same reason why Spider-Man doesn't, you know, absolutely just go all out on his villains. You know, in reality, he can kill Dr. Octavius. He could kill a lot of his villains like Green Goblin. Like, he actually has the physical power to do it, but he doesn't do it because, you know, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And you can tell the story of how he's struggling to, you know, make sure he keeps that power under check, while at the same time he still wants to do the right thing. But they chose to take the route. Don't get me wrong, like I said, the story's still good, it's still solid, and it's still enjoyable. Both seasons were solid, but like I said, they depowered him, and I thought they did that just so, like I said, he wouldn't be able to solve every problem, you know, quickly and easily, even when it comes to, like, you know, lower level henchmen who weren't necessarily Tobias. But then turned around and gave the daughter all the powers, and then it kind of defeats the purpose of it, and it kind of cheapens the story, because at the same time, even if he can't solve all those problems, she pretty much can. She may not have the same type of experience, but everyone, I'm pretty sure, could agree that, you know, even someone who has absolute raw power versus someone who doesn't have as much power but technique, there's still a solid chance that the person with raw power, just absolute, just physical raw power, can still outmatch someone who has technique. And they even put a cap on the amount of power that Black Lightning could absorb, because even when he was self-sustaining his own power in the comics, he was able to absorb the Justice League headquarters, which was ran on a nuclear power source. And for those of you who don't know how much power is given off in a nuclear fusion chamber, obviously I'm not a, you know, nuclear physicist or anything like that, so I couldn't give you exact numbers, but just know there's a lot. And the fact that he would cap out at such a minuscule amount of power, it was ridiculous. And then like I said, turn around and the daughter would have the same abilities that he would have in the comic book. So it kind of made the story a little cheaper, where you take his powers away to tell a decent story, but then give the powers to her, when in reality, you know, she's very much heavily involved in the plot like he is. And then kind of, it's like, why even take the power away when you could have just gave it to him and still told a compelling story? But let me know what you thought about Black Lightning or anything like that, or how you felt about his severe depowering for the CW series. And if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe, and leave a comment down below and all that good stuff. And I hope to see you later on. Peace out.